Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
I assume Tom.
This lady was a toddler in tiaras before TLC even turned it into a series. From there, she joined the Mickey Mouse Club and performed all over the world with several of your favorite artists, as well as her own original work as a Christian contemporary musician. She's become a motivational speaker after experiencing such a tragedy with the loss of her mother on Father's Day, no less. Jennifer McGill, how are you today?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. I love your background.
Oh, thank you. You know, we got to keep theme with the company, so.
Love it.
Yeah. Something popped up. MouseCon popped up. You know, that's coming in January. And I saw you on the list and I was just like, all right, so let's try to do a pre-interview because I haven't fully committed if I'm going yet or not to Bakersfield. But you're going to be there. I saw that you were at 90s Con. They're the same people that do Christmas Con. And I covered Christmas Con out here in Pasadena, which is nothing like covering a Christmas event in August in LA. Yeah, and you got so much going on for you that, you know, you got these customized stickers. You are now you're president of an organization that you're going to have to let us know the official name and title because there's some initials there that I'm probably going to say in the wrong order. And you're going to have to tell us what they stand for and how that all came about. But congratulations on everything.
Thank you so much. This has absolutely been a very busy year. Yes, currently I'm president of PCG Artist Development, and that's Premier Career Guidance. And we are a preparatory company for young artists and their families who are interested in having a team versus trying to figure it all out by themselves. And, you know, working through recording artist protocols, record label standards, and how to be an independent business person above all else, and how to be fully healthy from the inside out. We want to make sure that we check all the boxes for our artists as they're preparing. So that's exciting. And then MouseCon, I think that's January 28th in Bakersfield. And this is going to be the first time people see them in person out on display, but I have my sticker collection. And what these are, they are inspired by one of my fan favorite songs from the new Mickey Mouse Club, the all new Mickey Mouse Club, which I need to learn to say it that way. We've abbreviated. You know, MMC has been the thing forever. And then it was Mickey Mouse Club. And now it's like new Mickey Mouse Club. And it's actually the all new Mickey Mouse Club. That's a lot. But yeah, the stickers are inspired by Jennifer Sings the Blues, which we call the stupid costume blues. Hate to wear the stupid costume blues. And I went through the song's lyrics, and in order, Anthony Donovan is my designer, and he designed each one of these to my request based on the lyrics of the song. So they're printed out in order. They all have like fun little titles, like I'm a piece of bread, and it has hashtag OOTD, outfit of the day, but the hashtag is written in grape jelly on the sticker. So we really paid attention to detail, and anyone who's a fan of that song or the show and kind of all that represents, this was one of the most special songs I sang. And so I have this limited edition sticker collection for sale on my merch store. But yeah, that's been my most recent output of merchandise. And I just love it so much. They're so gorgeous. The stickers are amazing. So I'm excited to bring those to MouseCon for the first time.
Yeah, that sounds like you're having a lot of fun with being on the production side of things. And it's very interesting how you're helping these young artists come about, because even if we go back to Jackie Coogan and the Coogan Law for child labor laws nearly 100 years ago, probably 102 years ago at this point, after Charlie Chaplin's The Kid and what he went through, and then becoming Uncle Fester and having lost all his fortune and so much that's gone on, they haven't really protected young artists, even though we've passed all these laws to help them over the years. So congratulations on this organization.
Thank you. Yes, I remember sometimes on the set, when I was young and in the business, people would joke about the child labor laws. Now, I'm here to say I have no idea if it was a joke or if people were actually piping up and talking about things. I definitely am not a lawyer. I have no idea. You know, I got through it just fine. But it's a lot of hard, grueling work, even when you follow the law. So I can only imagine, you know, if families and young people don't understand what their rights are and, you know, how to read their contracts, you know, all of that matters. You know, we are now in a day and age where you have to be an independent business person. And I remember that I and my family were not well versed in that. And I want to help change that by uniting in this team of PCG Artist Development and all of its resources to make sure we can equip people with the people that know how to read the contracts and make sure we vet everyone that our clients come in contact with. Because I would have wanted that as a kid. My parents would have wanted that as green and new in the business back when I was 10 years old.
Well, you still look exactly the way you did at 10 years old when those like old pictures pop up of like the Mickey Mouse Club. Sorry, the all new Mickey Mouse Club.
Yes, the all Mouse Club. Yeah. You know what's crazy is back in the day, I wished that I wasn't like so adorable. I just felt so cheesy, so goofy and awkward and uncomfortable. And now like all this feedback, like thank you so much for the compliment. But I guess like the little face has stayed. And now it's like, yeah, thank you. I'm so appreciative of my little face now, I guess.
Right. You could have been 35 at one point and looked 65 and, just like, who wants that?
I know this business will take it out of you. So I'm very thankful that I did, get through a lot of trials and tribulations, and I've hydrated, I've moisturized, it all worked out.
And getting your 8 hours sleep.
Yes, I do. I'm a good sleeper. Thank you very much. Good sleeper.
I'd be remiss because I'd forget to mention this later on, so I might as well do it now. Since we did mention the all-new Mickey Mouse Club, unfortunately, we're coming up on the 1-year memorial of the passing of Tiffany Hale, who was a part of the group with you, and she was in the group The Party when they went out in their little 5-person group. Do you have any memories that you'd like to share about Tiffany, since the 1 year is coming up just in time for Christmas?
Yes, I have this very peaceful memory of the two of us, and I like to categorize it as the calm before the storm. Because once the show got started and all the kids arrived for the shoots, like the pilot as well as season 1, Tiffany gravitated towards girls her exact age. And then I was a little younger, and, we didn't get as much time together. We didn't share a dressing room. We just didn't get as much time together. So I like to remember that when we first got there, we were sitting out on the concrete slab, like kind of in the apartment stairwell, right? And we were sitting right on the edge out towards the back. And back then, it was still okay to have like a swamp out back of an apartment complex, even though alligators could totally have come up and like grabbed us and taken us away. But we were just out there staring at nature, like full on silent. And then these frogs started coming up to us, and we crossed our legs. And we just kind of, we didn't know what meditation was or anything, I don't think, but we balanced frogs on our knees in these cross-legged position, and just kind of literally we were quiet together and just stared out, and we just were being. And honestly, I don't know if I had a more mature moment in my childhood than that moment of just being zen with Tiffany. But I always looked up to her, her iconic combat boots. I still have most of my shoes look like that, just different forms, different hardware and heels on them. But I've always just looked up to her for her goodness. She always wanted to take care of me. I remember I've seen video footage of her making sure Lindsay was okay in certain moments, because she was the very youngest in the beginning. And she always had our back. She always wanted to take care of us. She was a style icon. I just always wanted to look like her, and everybody loved her. She was such a good person and such a beautiful person. And I was really excited when she came back to be a co-host with Chasen. Gorgeous. Like, she was just gorgeous. She just kept getting more beautiful. So absolutely, like, I don't have a bad memory of Tiffany. And I'm really thankful for that, because she's an angel, and I just want to keep her that way. I thought she was fantastic. And I believe that when you think of people, that they kind of come to you, like whatever time looks like on the other side of heaven, etc. I think that there is a certain kind of energy and access to be able to think of someone and speak with them. And I think that if I send those messages out, she hears them, and she hears all of our hearts. And I just think that more than ever, she's ever more clear about how much she is loved here. And she does. The thought of her warms my heart. And, Christmas is very special. There's a lot of hard memories for me in Christmas anyway. This doesn't help, but I'm glad that we all can think of her on such a special day in our culture, and that we can remember her as well.
I think I mentioned to you in one of our email exchanges that in the high churches, you know, when someone passes on a major holiday, whether it's Christmas, the Annunciation of Christ, Lazarus Saturday, Palm Sunday, or all of Holy Week leading up to Easter, or the Dormition of the Virgin Mary, that it's always taken as a good sign, because now they're with God, because they will always be remembered on those holidays.
Yeah, I do remember you saying that. You know, there's no, you know, there's no easy way to talk about someone passing, but you know, if you had to, if you had to do it cool, she did it cool. Like she did it on Christmas, yo. Like, so I'm like, all right, Tiff, yeah, you go out now, you shine that Christmas light, you know. And it's, you know, it's hard to talk about it, and I do try to make stuff light and fluffy sometimes, but I really do find the joy wherever I can. And Tiffany doesn't leave me with anything but joy. So it is a beautiful, joyous holiday that I can wrap it all together and think of her. And honestly, she's not the only one I think of at Christmas time that I miss. So she's in wonderful company.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there's still some joy involved in the holiday for you, even with all the tragedies that have succumbed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Since I did mention this in the pre-interview, this has kind of been Disney week for us here at Fanboy Nation. I recently interviewed Disney legend animator Eric Goldberg for the documentary Mickey, you know, the story of a mouse. November 18th is Mickey Mouse's birthday. It's the centennial anniversary of Steamboat Willie. You were part of the Mickey Mouse Club. You know, what is it about this mouse 100 years later that everyone's still excited for? I'm sorry, it's Mickey's centennial, but Steamboat Willie's centennial is 94 on Friday. Sorry. I got to get that right before, you know, all the hidden Mickey people start yelling at me.
You know, I think for me, I mean, I think for me, I didn't have a lot of access to Mickey life until I got to be a Mouseketeer. And I think everybody starts out with seeing the plush animal and having the t-shirt. And I remember Mousercise. I absolutely remember working out to Mousercise, you know, I mean, come on now, like, yeah. And so
I totally forgot that existed.
all comes flooding back to me, right? Like just all, you know, all the squats and the bends or whatever we were doing. And so, you know, everybody has that point in their childhood where most likely a parent has introduced them to Mickey Mouse. I remember in our day and in that generation, we didn't have access to the Disney Channel unless you paid for it. And the subscriptions were a little heavy. And, you know, my family wasn't able to invest in all sorts of things like that. But when we brought Disney into our life, as far as my career, a lot of that changed. And that's when I became just uber, I guess, a fan consumer of the Disney Channel. And so I was slowly but surely becoming a fan of our show as I would come home every evening and check the VHS and see, okay, what did they play today? Like, what did we do? What did I miss out on that I can now enjoy? You know, how do they edit that video together? You know, so, you know, Mickey for me mostly became my lovingly my boss. He represented every opportunity and the doors that were opening for me, and a developmental sense of absorbing so much production, being around people and things that I just could not get enough of. I was so hungry for learning and production. He became a source, you know, he became my future. And so I don't really think of Mickey Mouse as like this cute cartoon. I think of Mickey as this gatekeeper, as this door, you know, and the key turning for me. And so Mickey, I remember when I researched the original Mouseketeers and the beginning of the club, what I love also is that Mickey showed me a very diverse and open community. And our show was able to take further steps towards inclusion and diversity, and having deep guests to ask, you know, tough questions to, and really talking about what kids are interested in and what they're curious about. And I think we did take a step further with that. So yeah, Mickey has many deep meanings for me, but the least of all is the toy or the cartoon. So I'm all like, yeah, all these anniversaries, that sounds awesome. For me, it was almost like my home. It was a part of being. See, that sounds real poetic and all that. I promise I didn't memorize that, but it really is a different thing for me. It's not represented in a doll, and it's not represented in a particular cartoon. It's represented in a gate opening, a door opening for me. And so I'm so grateful to everything that Mickey's represented for me and provided for me in my life.
So then what's it like going to Disney World as an adult now and seeing like, oh yeah, this is where I used to work, where everyone's eager to visit these places. It's now Hollywood Studios, no longer MGM Studios. You have the Magic Kingdom, Epcot Center, and everything else that's there now.
So I moved with my family to Orlando, Florida, shortly after we started the first season. And so the parks, since the Mouseketeers had an employee ID and a silver pass with no blockout dates where you could take 3 people in anytime you wanted, Disney World became my home, my backyard. I took dates there when I got older. I took all my friends there for New Year's Eve. Of course, Epcot was my favorite because I loved science, and I loved the parts that would teach you and that maybe weren't so character driven at the time. It was just all sciencey and like the science of sound and light and wonder and biology. And it was really, really cool for me to wander around in there. MGM Studios, though, it is nostalgic when I go there now. But I'm also a little sad when I go there because there's really no commemoration of our show. And I kid you not, every time I ride the Toy Story ride, the arcade game, like where you shoot whatever you're shooting, all I'm doing is looking up at the ceilings because that was our sound stage and it looks the same. Oh, I'm getting verklempt. I'm sorry. It's the only thing that's the same. And it makes me sad.
That's still pretty rad that you have that connection. Like, hey, our soundstage is now living on as a Toy Story ride.
That's right. I mean, like the outside looks very much the same. I can point out where Chase and I did a frog dissection out on a picnic table next to our school trailer. I can tell you where I did my vocal training just down the way beyond this concrete gate that's now here. I can tell you that beyond this area is the bungalow, or used to be the bungalow where we went to school. And many, many moons ago, the water tower area was where we held school, or that's where I used to park. And like, I can just take you through all the places that I had all these memories of, and that doesn't change regardless of how the park looks. But then to go there and really not see a trace of it, and there's no commemoration, it just makes me sad. Obviously I have no say in how, the parks run anything, but, we were there working before the park opened. And it's sad that there's no trace of us and what we brought into the park. And all the tourists that came to see us on the backstage tour. And, there's just so much that they could commemorate of us. And I don't think that it's over. I don't think that there's ever any deal where they could never come back and say, hey, by the way, like we want to show you guys like what happened here. But, I think that it's transitioned to some fantastic attractions. And I did get to explore the Star Wars area, which it's so much fun to go back there. And, I love that they keep evolving that park. I think it's super important to keep bringing in, the new attractions and developing that park. But for me, it was always going to be a soundstage and, that Hollywood vibe. Yeah. MGM Studios. To me, I miss the streetmosphere and I miss, the monster makeup thing. And like having more performers and being able to be interviewed at the Hollywood Bowl that used to be there. It was much more organic at the time. And I'm just glad that I can be a rememberer, a curator of some of that ambiance and that nostalgia. Because my favorite part of, I think, MGM Studios was remembering how it was right at the beginning with New York Street and seeing the Golden Girls facade for the first time and riding, was it Catastrophe Canyon for the first time? And like, there's water and there's fire. Oh my gosh. Like, I mean, I'm 10, 11 years old. The first time I stepped on Disney property was at Epcot with our executive producer during the pilot. I'd never been there. I'd never been able to take a vacation to Disney World before. And this job let me do that. So I'm, no matter what happens, I'm always going to be grateful that I got to be there when, before plants were in the planters, before there was ice cream in the dinosaur ice cream booth there at MGM. I got to see Sigourney Weaver and the aliens and, get all excited about that, even though I don't think I'd seen the movie. But, it was just so cool. Like, it was just such a cool vibe, right? And we miss the things that we attached to when we're kids, I still think they need to commemorate that we had been there and that we brought a lot of people through that park with our show.
All right, some pin collector, get on it, start a petition,
Look,
I know. Listen, I know how I live by Disneyland. I know how dedicated pin collectors get.
Yeah,
so let's let them do some MMC thing for you.
Look, this is there's a sign, okay? Look what people are starting to buy in store. Look, it is a Mickey Mouse Club blazer with the emblem and everything, right? Like, people are starting to wake up and commemorate us. People are buying these ornaments. This was gifted to me. I haven't even thanked the person yet because I haven't released the little video of me opening this ornament. But I started last year because, as I've said, Christmas can be difficult, and it's not just for me. I started last year to create a family Christmas tree. In a year that I didn't want to put up a Christmas tree, I decided on behalf of my family to do that. And I invited everyone to send me ornaments. And I would write their name on it in the year, and I did a video for each one of them, opening them up for the first time so that they could see my reaction. And so I've done a video opening this up, and her name is Kim, and I'm going to put her name on top of, her name's going to go like right here where the name would be on the on top of the emblem. And this is going to go on the tree this year, and that Christmas tree is a connector for all of my fans. And the fact that we have an all new Mickey Mouse Club jacket ornament with the icon, the emblem, and everything going on this tree. What? I mean, I just hope that it's the beginning of much more memorabilia and emblems to come that we can consume, still being a fan of the show.
That's fantastic. Do you still have your Letterman jacket?
I do. Through the years, they gave us a few different kinds of jackets. We had a lot of different commemorative jackets. My favorite one is actually my bowling jacket, I guess. I don't know. We had wrap parties every year. So I've gone through, at least 7 of them. I don't remember what we did for the pilot, but they gave us this really cool white jacket that has the emblem on it and our name. And I think because it's just so different in its coloring from the original, I just always thought that was really, really cool. And I got to do a photo shoot a few years ago using that jacket. And that was really cool. But yes, I have my original one with the pink sleeves. And I don't know how I got it. All I remember is that some adult said, "Here, why don't you take this?" And I was like, okay. And so I have it. I just have it. And I'm so excited. Like, I actually wore it to last year's 90s Con.
Nice. Over in New Jersey.
Connecticut.
Okay, that's right. They do Christmas Con in New Jersey. Sorry, it's the same group that does 90s Con and Christmas Con. So
Yes.
I was covering Christmas Con this past year, and I know they did it in New Jersey. I thought both were there.
Yeah, no, we did it. Gosh, I'm not going to remember. It might have been Hartford, but yeah, we did that in Connecticut. And Nikki DeLoach, such a huge part of, how we were there, why we were there, such a cheerleader of us. Obviously, she, of course, is part of our family and part of our Mouseketeer cast, but like, even just outside of that, she's accomplished so much in her life. And to be a big cheerleader for the cause and for, keeping us in everybody's memory and on the radar, especially with something like 90s Con. So amazing. And I had so much fun. I really hope I'm invited back this year or next year, because I can't remember a more fun time. I actually got to hang out with Bill Diamond, one of the designers of the Dark Crystal artwork and the puppetry and all of that. And I got to hold the sword, that I don't know if it pierced the Dark Crystal, but just one of those big prop swords. And I got to speak with him about things, and I got to see some of the Dark Crystal memorabilia, and I just geeked out about it. So I don't geek out about a lot of stuff. So I was really excited to be able to geek out at 90s Con, and that inspired my stickers collection. So I'm very grateful.
Well, that's awesome. You know, we're trying to convince them to do a 90s con out here in California.
Yeah, I'm down. Very
Yeah.
down.
One of the founders was like, would it work here? I was like, 90% of the actors live out here, except you, who's decided to stay on the East Coast.
I'm in Nashville. I'm somewhere in the middle right now, I guess. It's funny, like, I feel like such a city girl, but I cannot get away from the South. So it just is what it is. You know, a lot of artists are here, right? And so PCG Artist Development, this is one of our hubs. And so it just made a lot of sense. This is the longest I've lived in one place. I think I've been here as of right after Christmas. It will be 13 years I've been in Nashville.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
I got friends that moved there during the pandemic that are trying to convince me to come out. And then I checked the weather the other day and I was like, maybe I'll see you guys in May.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I love the cold, actually. I talk about how I'm a polar bear, and I have a girlfriend who told me the other day, very soon we're going to book a trip to go see the Northern Lights, and we're going to go to Christmastown. And you're the only friend I know who would come with me. So we're going. I'm like, yep, you got it. I don't care. We'll go whenever. We'll take a dog sled. It's fine.
Let's fast forward, you know, to more adult things. You've also sing what's it called, Christian contemporary music. You know, you still perform. I saw that you are doing a couple of Facebook concerts for charity as well. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How do you reconcile having worked in a secular medium and then a religious one as well, and finding the balance between the two?
Well, I think part of the puzzle piece for me there is that I was always a Christian, regardless of the type of music I was working through. So the place from where my energy and my excitement for music came was always a place of faith, always a place of supernatural strength. And I remember around 8th grade when I heard Mariah Carey's first album, and there was such a heavy influence of gospel choir support. I thought, like, what is this? You know, I'm so moved by this sound, you know. And before that, I was enthralled with Whitney Houston. I was enthralled with the movie The Wiz. And I was trying to put it together. Why are these things sticking? What is this? Because it's just a little unfamiliar to me. And you know, I just came to the point where I understood that's another flavor, that's another output to express faith, was this gospel sound and this gospel flavor that in my personal life, you know, I didn't live or go to a church. I didn't live within that type of sphere of influence of gospel music. And so when I would get exposed to it, it just stuck with me, right? And so in all of my cover song work, I started gravitating more towards that type of sound. And I kind of skipped the years where, as a young person, you would figure out your sound, write some songs with some people, and make an album. You know, I never really went into that moment because I did go through a Capitol Records deal right after college. But I rejected the deal, and then, you know, nothing came back around to fruition in the recording artist world for me at that time, because the bubblegum pop movement happened. I wasn't a good fit for that. And so I, you know, kept moving through all of these fantastic other more so live show kind of jobs, and really enjoying touring the world on stage and doing a lot of great projects, and sort of just didn't think about my sound versus my work. And in my 30s, after I'd lived all this tour life and all of this live show experimentation between sounds and styles and people doing all the things, I was given the opportunity to sit down and say, all right, we're going to make an album. What do you want to do? What is this? And I wrote for half a year at least. And when it was all said and done, it became a pop inspirational album. That's the genre I've decided to entitle myself attached to. I wanted to make an album that absolutely, from the lens of Christianity, from the lens of what I believe in, everything lines up. But if you're still on a journey of faith, and, you know, you have different belief systems, everything that is extracted from my album is from a place of empowerment. And if you are down, you are not alone. You can get back up. You can be strong enough. You don't have to do it by yourself. It takes people through a journey of struggles and successes, you know, in faith, in figuring out this life, in not just surviving, but of course, thriving. And, you know, how we can, you know, surrender some of the stuff that gets in our way, but also how we can capitalize on the gifts that we're given in this life. Love being at the center of everything, love and grace and forgiveness. And so I wanted to make it for everybody. And so that's why it's pop inspirational. And it took me longer than a lot of people, but at that point I knew how I wanted to sound, because I had breathed in and out long enough to, it just became very natural. I didn't have to sit down and say, well, I want this much gospel and I want this much this. I was able to just express myself through the tracks. And then when it was all edited down, when it was all presented, you know, I got to look back and go, yeah, this is, I sang from the heart and this is the sound. And so it was a little bit different than what I guess a lot of recording artists' stories would be, but I was a late bloomer in my sound. But I'm so grateful that I got attached to gospel music and R&B from the 90s. I know everybody has their era that they're just like, oh man, like I remember getting so mad at the older folks in my life for all of the doo-wop and the 50s or the 60s, whatever they were into, that I was like, all I want is a good 80s track. All I want is my 90s R&B. And now I understand it takes you to a certain place. It takes you to a certain time in your life where you were like, yeah, this is a beautiful moment. And I'm glad that reflects in my own personal vocals as well.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I know this is part of your journey and part of your story, but your mother had passed away on Father's Day while you were at lunch together.
Yes.
How long does it, I mean, you never get over it, obviously. I lost my dad. So I lost my dad 12 years ago and I've never gotten over it. You know, you just become sort of numb to it. You know, how do you forge forward? And at what point do you let the morning go in order to continue on with your career?
I believe I was very traumatized by her death. It was, like you said, right in front of me. But there was a quick realization of the beauty of how that was. It was a very Steel Magnolias moment. It was, you know, it was just the two of us in the beginning of my life. I'm from a blended family, and she and I were together in the very beginning of my life. And she and I were together at the end of hers. And I think the way that I'm wired, it's probably best I was there, because I would always wonder what really happened. And to witness, you know, her passing is extremely painful, but she was also my favorite person in the whole world. And there is a gift in that experience, even though it may sound really unconventional or unbelievable, but there is a gift in having been there with my favorite person when she passed. And the only thing that would have made it more profound was if she had lingered, where we could have said something to each other. But as it happened, she was taken very quickly, and there was no exit. There was no hey, I see him, hey Jesus, like there was nothing. Right. And you know, my mother was a very bubbly and patient and funny, talented woman, very wise and very strong, and in her own ways very fragile. And what I think in the long run keeps me going and keeps, let's say, the grief away for the most part, is that I am very much my mother's daughter. All of the best of her, I hope I inherited. And I think I see it because I've done so much deep dive work in recent years. I've really done a lot of work towards a lot of different kinds of healing, a lot of different kinds of strengthening of my own identity. Who do I want to be in this world? What is my purpose? How do I want to affect change? You know, who made me? What am I for? How am I strengthened? You know, really making sure I've worked through as much as I can. And working through a lot of that grief and that mourning, I find a lot of joy in how one of the most important things in her life was her children, and that I'm one of them, you know? And so I feel like she lives on here through me and my brother and all of the students throughout her school career, her English teacher career, and her gifted resource career. So many people have been positively influenced by her. So that's the good news, is that she shows up in so many fantastic ways. But I don't think the mourning ever stops. I just think that you choose where to put it, because I try to put it into those joyous thoughts of, she's not here, but I can still speak with her. She's not here, but I can still remember her, and I can still inject into this world the things that I took from her, you know, and that she gave to me. So, you know, everywhere I go, people who knew her are just like, oh, your mom was so great. Like, oh, I see so much of you in her, and or you, her and you. And I guess that's what helps sprinkle the glitter on it every day, right? But yeah, it's never, you know, I don't want to candy coat it. I don't think it's ever gone. Mom passed away. I lose track, but I think this is 20 years in June, I think. And yeah, it's a terrible day for me. It's a terrible day. Some years I don't quite remember in the beginning, and I'm kind of like glad, because she wouldn't want me to harp on, you know, the day of her passing. But again, the moments of grief and the moments of mourning are shorter, but I don't know if I'd ever want them to be fully gone. I do also think sometimes we punish ourselves. We always have those, oh, I coulda, shoulda, woulda, wish I could have said the things, wish we had more time, wish I could have thanked her one more time for everything she did. And I do encourage people to let that stuff go. It's not easy, obviously.
No,
I'm not. It's always we're always a work in progress. We have to think about what our loved ones, how they would want us to live our lives. And if you believe that when you think of someone, like I've said that I do, they don't want to show up and, you know, just have you feel guilty about stuff or, you know, feel miserable. They want to show up and they want to share joy and love, because that's what I believe we keep as we move forward. That's what we remember, or what I hope we do remember. So yeah, I encourage you and everyone who's lost someone, you know, all your feelings are valid, and there's no straight healing line. It's all squiggly. It's like a roller coaster. But the important thing is to celebrate the best of the people and what they did and what lasts. You know, that's the true legacy.
I like that perspective.
I like it too.
Well, it's worked for you.
It has. Yeah. And believe me, that wasn't overnight. You know, I was just, you know, it's when your mom or your loved one and your favorite person in the world and someone that you were so connected to goes, I mean, there's a hole. And I've said this in another interview. This is also a weird thought for a lot of people who haven't lost someone of that connection yet. You know, in many ways, my mom was my Jesus, and I would go to her for all the things, you know. Makes sense, because she was my mother and in many ways my best friend. But since her passing, that was when I had some space to really adult with God for the first time. And, you know, I believe that everyone should, in a mature part of their life, make that adult choice to believe what they believe and not just chew on what they've been fed as children. I think it's important for each of us to know why and have a personal connection, a personal dialogue. And I didn't really have a personal dialogue beyond, I'm so sorry, I hope you forgive me. I'm so sorry. I'm not perfect. And I felt a lot of guilt and like worry that I just wasn't good enough in my religion. Right. But now I have a fantastic Holy Spirit relationship with God. And yeah, maybe mom like moved on and kind of helped me look in that direction more seriously. Right. But now I go to God, and I go to my faith for all the questions and the support and the comfort, and to say what's on my mind. And it's cool to know that she's, woven up in all that as well. But I feel that I'm so much more spiritually strong, having to go through her passing and recalibrate my faith.
And after this recalibration, how do you move on as a Christian performer and then go into the production side of things, where you are now as your president of PCG?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my evolution through faith did not include judging other people more heavily. That was kind of the opposite. My grace and my love and my forgiveness meter, my patience meter, my capacity for love and seeing beyond this world, I think all of that got bigger and got broader. The more and more I focused on Jesus and my belief that he'd put anyone on his lap, that let the children come didn't mean just let that one and that one come. I moved further away from a smaller world. I don't know how to explain that any differently. I had bigger thoughts. And so bigger love, bigger thoughts, bigger grace and forgiveness. So the way that I view the world, my role isn't to judge or label or exclude. My role is to nurture and support and feed through a very authentic place of faith. I'm my source. I then give my love and energy and attention and nurturing and support and encouragement to the world as God sees fit to show me where to point it, which means no matter where I'm singing and what I'm actually singing, the source is the same. So I've kind of dissolved labels to a point in that way, or maybe what I remember from certain venues or certain secular or unsecular moments of musical expression. That's why I became a pop inspirational singer. I don't think my music would be on CCM radio, right? It's not specific enough in its wording, and that's fine. Like, if I could have made that album, I could have made a CCM album and tried to play that game. But it was more important for me to speak to those who maybe weren't ready for a CCM radio or weren't ready for a Jesus this and Jesus this album, but they needed someone that they connected to tell them some things and to get them started or to get them further down the path. And I wanted to plant those seeds with all those really powerful, pieces of faith and strength and love, and tell them they're not alone. And when they're ready, I can tell them why they're not alone, because I had to go through all that myself. I had to make sure I understood that for myself, that I'm not alone, and, where my strength comes from and where my healing comes from and where my mom is, and that's why I'm saying, like, everyone needs to make sure they do that for themselves, and no two relationships with God are the same. We're all very specific in the way that we speak and the way that we, talk about our troubles and our celebrations and how we love and how we listen, so it's got to be personal. And that's why there shouldn't be some label of it's this or that, all the children are different and they sit on the lap a little differently.
Growing up, since I come from a high church tradition and my family's from the Middle East, when I was exposed to American Christianity, which looks totally different than Middle Eastern Christianity, by the way. Eastern Christianity and Western Christianity don't look anything alike whatsoever.
Okay.
And so when I first, when people started playing me like Christian contemporary music, I was just like, are they trying to date Jesus? Because a lot of it sounds like they're trying to romance him, not worship him. And
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
And then when I was in graduate school, the South Park episode called Jesus Rock or Christian Rock Hard came out, where Cartman decided to start a Christian rock band.
Yes.
And I watched it and I was dying through the whole episode, because that was virtually my experience with CCM, was basically either them taking secular songs and then romancing Jesus with it, or doing like a Christian cover of those songs. And I was like, wow, These South Park guys hit it out of the park with that one.
Yeah, I think that there is this element of and in all fairness, if we're gonna make God a he, just for a moment here, if we're gonna make God a he, it makes a little bit more sense for a Christian woman to try to find that, I'm in love with this guy, there are a lot of father-daughter relationships where they're just cradled, and it's just this touchy-feely, like my daddy, and like there's this element that does very easily move into, I need you to be the love of my life because I haven't found my husband, and I feel rejected. Things are not the way I want them to be. I would love to have that person, but they're not here right now. You're the forever version of where I can find a source of love and accept. I get it. And I've absolutely been through that phase. Absolutely. Like, I totally get it. But what happened to me in part of my evolution with God was I brought my mom back into this sort of idea of, okay, God made all of us, like woman and man. And I've been kind of looking at it as, this guy who's, making the rules, and like, I have to make sure that I'm pleasing to this rule maker, and he sees everything. And it was really stressful for me, right? Like I really was just kind of held back emotionally when I was growing up because I couldn't find the connection. I wanted to please him. I wanted to be a good girl. I wanted to be a Christian, but I couldn't find the emotional connection. I couldn't figure it out. And then, sometime after mom passed away, I started remembering that we're all made in God's image. And so the mother part of God is also up there doing the things. And when I thought about how my mom loved me so unconditionally, and how close I was to her, and I could tell her anything, and she had my back, and she understood, she knew my thoughts before I even said them. And I'm like, if I can inject that into my relationship and understand God the mother father, let's just say, or like whatever, God the aunt uncle, whatever your most beloved family member is, right? If I put all that into the relationship, that's where it kind of changed for me. And so, yeah, like then I can't necessarily sing the same, love songs in the same exact way when I do that. So, but I get it. Like, look, God has to be fulfilling to each person personally, like I said. And so those songs make a lot of sense to a lot of people, and I get it. Absolutely.
I'm going to rock your world with this, since this is something that is never talked about in Western Christianity, especially the evangelical movement.
Okay.
So in the Bible, especially the King James Version, God is always capitalized as he.
Yes.
All right. In every other language, God is referred to as masculine plural because God the Father is formless, right? So incarnation is Christ, God the man, all right? Second person of the Trinity, the Logos in Greek, all right? So English doesn't have masculine or feminine plural.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to show masculine plural or feminine plural, you capitalize the H or the S.
Okay.
And that's why in English, God is always capitalized as he to show masculine plural. So it's in reference to the Holy Trinity as three entities in one, not as he as in masculine male form only.
Right. And
and that's what's lost in English because no one explains that anymore.
Right. And, like when I studied in the very beginning, and you start with the Jewish culture, it was, the man is the head of the household and they make the decisions, and, the women are the property, and that may be, oversimplification. I am not a studious, I don't know. I'll
have to explain Ephesians to you in a moment. So.
Right. I'm not a guru. I'm definitely not, I don't have all that. But again, I am an American Christian girl, and this is what I've been, absorbing and what I've been taught. So I just couldn't figure it out. You know what I'm saying? I just was disconnected. I believed, and I wanted to be a good girl, and I believed, but so you kind of know what I'm saying, that I've just changed my perspective to make sure that I'm not putting God in a box, and I'll just leave it there. Right. I don't want to put God in a box. And I don't think I am. And I have never been so connected and confident every moment, not stepping into a church per se, maybe not lighting a candle or opening up the Bible. Every moment, it's like, I know we're here, and it is we're here, that's been very comforting to me. I'm really grateful. I mean, I am.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah.
No, it's just interesting on that perspective because so many people don't realize that.
Yeah.
It's like the book of Ephesians where they talk about marriage. In the original Greek, there's no line break where it says, "Why be submissive to your husbands?" And then there was a line break when it was translated from the Greek. In the actual translation, though, it's one passage, 24 and 25. Husbands, love your wives too, as so Christ loved the church that he gave himself up for it. So in Christianity, the way it's supposed to be is the reason why the wife is submitting to the authority of the husband is because he has to sacrifice everything, including his life, for her. And that's been missing in Western Christianity. They'll stop at like submit. And it's like, yeah, where's your sacrifice, pal? Because like you have to die for her.
I got to tell you, it's so interesting that more Christian discussions are popping up in interviews that I'm doing. I don't know what the goal, I don't know what God's doing there, but I think it's really interesting because I was getting deep somewhere else in a, similar kind of topic. But I mean, you're like schooling us right now, you're unpacking some definitions and stuff. And, I really enjoy learning more about God. I enjoy learning about interpretations and translations. And I really love learning about the living word. I actually worked, I don't know if you know this, I worked at the Holy Land Experience in Orlando, Florida as a dramatic and music minister for like 2 years. I did an album. Jan Crouch called me Mariah Carey because she couldn't remember my name, but she identified that I was a strong singer. Like I was on the worship team. I was on Praise the Lord. Like even in Nashville, like they flew me around to like Dallas and Nashville. I mean, I was in it, and I learned so much about the Bible. I learned so much about history. I'm actually going to go do a private worship retreat with one of my just favorite pastor mentors and Bible historians who used to work in the park and teach everyone about, the original Jewish cultures and how things kind of, came out from there. And I do love learning about it. I love learning about it. And that's what I mean. Like, I'm not surprised when I, hear different levels and dig deeper into it because I've taken God out of the box. God is not just in the past, and God is not trying to hammer us with fire and brimstone. We have to remember, like, if Jesus is the deal, then everything Jesus represents is what I want to focus on. And Jesus is it, right? Everything he did, everything he says, that's where I branch out from. That is the core. And if it gets too overwhelming, and if it freaks me out or shuts me down, I go back to Jesus. And I'm like, how did you live? How did you love? How did you treat people? I'm just going to do that. I'm doing that today. And it's changed my life.
Yeah, no, the Trinitarian aspect of all of it is quite significant. Like I used to be a school teacher and I taught at a parochial school, and one of the students was like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I was like, which one? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, because there's a Mormon version, there's a Jehovah's Witness version, which one? Like, like I've always talked to people, I was like, oh, I'm a follower of Christ. I was like, demons follow Christ. That doesn't mean anything to me. Like if you have to be specific within Christianity, like the specificity of it is like, I worship the Holy Trinity. So now it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, the triune God. And when you put it in that perspective, there's no, disassociation with it left open for other interpretations. So that's why, like, I always mention the Trinitarian aspect of it.
Yeah. We're learning.
That's what happens when you're talking to a former educator that was also a theologian. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I'm from a family of teachers, and I do, I want to learn something new every day. I try to stay really open. I mean, I think staying open and remembering you don't know everything, and remembering that people are entitled to their opinions, and you can take it in and choose for yourself still, I think all of that is really important. It's a big human right to be able to do that. And I know not everyone gets that right all over the world. And so, that's, again, it all goes back to why I made an inspirational pop album. Because I know not everyone's in the same place, but everybody needs that love and support, and they need to know they're not alone.
Jennifer, let's pivot real quick, since you kept talking about wanting your 80s and 90s jam, and I know that we're in the same age range.
Yeah.
80s, 90s guilty pleasure bands.
So John Cougar Mellencamp, which I can't remember if it was just John Mellencamp at the time, when he made the Cherry Bomb music video, guilty pleasure. I didn't know why I was feeling those things because I was so young. I didn't understand. Push It by Salt and Pepper. Me and my mother sang that in the car. We didn't quite know what was going on. And even furthermore, we didn't know what Do Me Baby meant. We rocked that in the minivan to and from school. Guilty pleasures for sure.
The whole
Poison.
backstage underage adolescent didn't like click.
Didn't know. We didn't hear the words. For me, I didn't know a lot. I wasn't diving into rap lyrics. I wasn't hearing the story and the through line yet. I was more into melodies and harmonizing. And remember back then, it was whatever was given to you on the radio. So we would just turn it on. And if you hear that song like every day after school at the same time or whatever that is, all of a sudden, like you're like, and your mom's like, naked in the morning time, and you just know, enough, but yeah, like Mariah Carey's whole first album, it's not a guilty pleasure actually. I loved that album. Boys to Men, I would harmonize with them. I was the fifth member. I would just go between all the harmonies. I loved them. But like if I go back to like 80s, so there was a song in the dentist office yesterday that came on, and it was it's gonna come back in my brain. I just died in your arms tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's something like, it must have been something you said, or it must have been something I did or whatever. Okay. So I was laying back with, the tools in my mouth, and I'm like, this song takes me back to my Denison childhood bedroom, singing this song, not knowing what it meant. And I don't know who sings it. I don't know who it is. I don't know the band or the solo artist, but this song brings me back to that moment. And it was stuff like that it just...
Wasn't it Mr. Mister?
Probably. I don't know. Right. But like, I remember getting my first record player radio, and the first big song was How Am I Supposed to Live Without You by Michael Bolton. Guilty pleasure, Michael Bolton. I don't care what anybody says. That boy can sing. Loved his stuff. Loved me some Michael Bolton. I love Celine Dion. Every time she beats herself up, I just, very guilty pleasure. I used to listen to her French albums, her French CDs. Yeah. I bought all of them. I was so obsessed with her.
And did you learn any French at all, or you just sang in French and didn't know what was going on?
I didn't even sing. I didn't even try. I just liked listening to her voice. So I couldn't tell you any of them. Random fact, I had a few Enya albums. I remember traveling like car rides, and I would have my foam headphones on, and I would listen to Enya, and I'm like, this is fantastic. I just immersed myself. It was like warm water, just like a warm, just immersion of calm with Enya. So I loved Enya. Sail Away, of course, probably the most famous song. And I really enjoyed, it was almost like, now that I'm more of a production nerd, it was almost like the drums they used weren't drums. It was like some synth, like a low synth beat versus a drum beat, like on the gong, 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 to sail away, say all that. And it's like, gong. And I'm like, I don't even think that was a drum, but it felt like a drum to me. And I'm like, oh, the tricks they do in production. It's just so brilliant, so cool. Yeah. So I geeked out a lot about production before I really understood what was happening. I've just always been in it like that.
And Jennifer, now take us through some of the artists you're working with. They're clearly not guilty pleasures. You're enjoying working with these people. You got some up and comers that you've been posting on your Instagram that sound pretty great. So who are some of these people that we need to keep an eye out for?
Well, we're really proud of Paige King Johnson. She's on our PCG record label. She is the only independent country artist on the charts. If you talk about training someone to be a successful independent business person, she is our example. She's been with us for over 3 years, and here she is, topping the charts as an independent artist. Because PCG Records is a partnership label. It's not stylized like the rest of them. So she still has full control over everything she's doing. And We like that for our artists. She is also the ambassador for the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. And so, again, being able to monetize and, stretch her influence and combine her music with something she really believes in and loves, which is agriculture and farming. She's from that life. And so it was just a perfect fit for her to become the ambassador. Another up and comer is Whitney Miller. I actually started out with her as her vocal coach and then introduced her to my connections with PCG Artist Development, and CMT.com premiered her first music video, her first single. And she's killing it. And I'm really, really proud of her. We have a fantastic young artist, like very young artist. I think she's 14, and we have worked with her probably for the last 2 or 3 years or more. Actually, I might have met her when she was like 9 or 10. Her name is Elle Townley, and she was the youngest nominated for this last Texas Country Music Awards ceremony. And she did not win. We just had, the awards ceremony just happened, but she's an incredible artist. She is fantastic. She has many singles out and videos that you can check out. Elle Townley. And she's just getting started. And just to be recognized like that is incredible. We have this fantastic, he's like I'll call him a lyrical poet. I think that's pretty much from a good 90s jam, I'm sure, the lyrical poet or the lyrical gangsta. But he's this fantastic, poetic singer and rapper. His name is Edwards, and I really enjoy what he's working on. I really enjoy his vision and his art. He does a lot of touring, so there's that. You got 4 of them right there.
Awesome. And how did you become a part of PCG?
So about 5 years ago, a co-worship leader at my church, who was working with PCG, kind of recruited me. He said, I really think you need to come talk to my boss. I think there's a place for you here, and you guys can figure out what that is. And so Bernard Porter, who is our CEO and founder of all the PCG companies, interviewed me. And I think originally I was just going to be a provider, which would be a coach, like for live show. But then he saw my passion for vocal coaching. And then he saw that I was very organized. And he was like, we can utilize you in a few different ways. So I became an executive pretty quickly. And then just, moving up through, like, getting more responsibility through time. I was very passionate about keeping everyone organized and about, I'm kind of a fast typer. I've gone on record to blame it on Justin Timberlake, because when we were in school on the set, we would hide out in the reading room, in the computer room. He would pretend to read his book, and I would type like my 2 letters or whatever you rehearse when you're doing your keyboard computer classes, and it's all muscle memory. So I would be talking with him, just gabbing, but I would actually be working at the same time. And so when I talk or when I hear people, it just comes through my fingers, because, I just blame it on, I had so much extra training when I was doing that class in high school. So I typed so fast that it became a joke in the company, where it's like, we'll just put Jen on it. You just say stuff and she'll figure it out. So yeah, I just stayed. I stayed in many capacities. And at some point, very recently, it was just time, it made sense to make me president, so that I was able to continue to oversee and train more people to do our clients the best that we can. It's really important for us to communicate and have efficiency. And we have a lot of people that we're working with. So it's very exciting. Like, it's very exciting that I'm in this place that really capitalizes or puts together all of the things that I hold most dear, which is production, show business, but helping people and creating safe spaces and knowing how to help people, and not being on the other side back in the day with like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't know what to do now in my career. I've been through all of those phases, and Bernard Porter has been through all of those phases. Together, we've been in the business for like 60 years or more when you put it all together. And so I'm so excited that I'm linked up with the only type of company of this kind, with such a 360 logical approach to an illogical business. And because I am both creative and very logical, and not that they are separate or opposite of each other, but to be an A-type creative, that's not most of the actors and singers and the artists out there. You know, a lot of us don't organize as well. And for many years, I didn't either. You know, I didn't know much about the business. And I vowed to educate people better. So they're just better at it younger than I was. I want everyone to be better at it than I was and more sure. And I want the families to be more sure, and that people in this jungle of show business are more vetted for our clients. And I wish we could do that for everybody. You know, we look for that 1% who are ready to work, who have the support of their family, who have the drive, who will take criticism and take direction and trust the process. You know, that's not everybody. But for those who are ready, we do incredible work with people. And I wouldn't be in the company if I didn't love the results.
And so what would President McGill tell 13-year-old Jennifer, Mickey Mouse Club Jennifer, you know, what to look out for?
Well, for sure, I would hope that I could have more decision-making with my money. I don't even know what I made on that show. I mean, I need to ask my dad. I'd love to interview him. I need to do that this holiday season, by the way. But I would love to ask him those questions. I don't know what I made. I know that I had a trust fund that paid for college, which I'm so grateful for. But, you know, our family, we weren't investors per se, you know, or at least I wasn't educated on what we were doing. And I would love for young people to be able to take more of a business approach to the money they earn and how they can reinvest it or how they can apply it towards building more wealth. Because as an independent business person, you have to be able to fund everything you're doing. And so to start young people out, I mean, we've talked about in schools how instead of learning geometry or, I don't know, pre-calculus, calculus, maybe we need to learn about, you know, checks and balances and what is a routing number mean? And like, what does Zelle do for us? There's all these new ways that, you know, we can operate a business. And I think that kind of stuff may be very tedious and boring for young people, but we need to learn how to read contracts. We need to learn how to negotiate. We need to learn that we have value and that we are not at the mercy of other people telling us what we should be and what we should sign and how we should act. If you're in this business, you need to have more confidence in who you are and what you bring to the table. And I didn't have any confidence like that. I knew that if you gave me a chance, I would perform and produce and I would do a great job. But I felt like I was at the mercy of the attention givers. You know, that's just how I was made. I was a people pleaser. And I think many child stars are that. That's the confidence and the business sense is what I would adjust in today's developing artists. And that's what we do.
Jennifer, this is a personal question from me to you. How come you have not ended up in a Hallmark movie at this point?
Oh my gosh, I would love to end up in a Hallmark movie. I guess I need to ask Nikki. I don't know how that works.
Like, listen, you got to get into all the Christmas ones.
I will tell you this. I get excited for more curvy girl opportunities. I would be happy if anyone watching would like to audition me for whatever role. I believe I'm going to be the most adorable old lady. And that even if you haven't seen me on any kind of production and any kind of screen for 40 years, someone should hire me when I'm silver haired and put me in something funny, you know, like the Yaya Sisterhood or whatever that is. Like, I would kill that. Like, I would love to be a funny neighbor or friend of someone or like old lady role. I would love to do that. I just never seem to be in the right circles because I don't live in the movie and the TV world, really. I've never lived in LA. I gravitated towards New York and I toyed with Broadway. The recording artist industry kind of pulled me out, and now I feel like that's where I'm inserted. But yeah, calling all casting directors of Hallmark and etc. If you have a role for me, your friendly neighborhood Amazonian, I am down. I'm hilarious. And I memorize.
Why, how tall are you?
I'm 5'7", but I
Well, you
don't
said
wear.
Amazonian, so I expected you to be like really tall at that point.
Well, look, I am the shortest of my sisters and brothers, but still, like I've always been taller than most people around me. Maybe I'm
That's
not
because your
living.
industry is full of short people.
Maybe that's what's up, because I mean, if you look at the people I grew up with, everyone was very petite, and it absolutely affects your view of yourself. That's part of the identity that I worked very hard to like wrap myself around, this sense of I'm made this way on purpose, and I need to accept that I am unique in my own ways, and that this is how it's supposed to be for me, because I absolutely could not whittle myself down to where most of my Mouseketeer brothers and sisters naturally have been, you know? So yeah, that is part of my personal journey in artist development, is to make sure that we do give a very healthy sense of what does it mean to be in a business of show? What are you going to work on, and what is unhealthy to work on? Like, how do we approach health, both in our physical and mental capacities? And you know, I had a brush with production when I was 12, telling me not to gain any more weight. And that's very difficult, because not only for me as a 12-year-old, but then I kind of pull back and think, you know, my parents were younger than I am now, I think, or about my age when this was happening to their 12-year-old daughter. And I would have probably lost it. My mom did not lose it. And I'm curious if we were in a place of fear and ignorance that we were allowed to say, thanks for the advice, but I'm not going to starve my daughter. Like, I don't know, because she's not here for me to talk to her woman to woman, you know. I missed those chances, but we can't control what show business asks of us, but we can control what we do with the information. And I think people need to know that. You know, there's not just one road to fame. And if your road is supposed to just be going to fame, you might be in it for the wrong reasons, you know. That has been the most important development in my life, is to enjoy who I am and the shape of who I am, and not have to worry about fitting into a mold. Once I was released from that, everything became a lot more joyous in my life, that's for sure. I think a lot of us who struggle in the business, we have this sense of guilt and shame about being made a certain way. And we also, gosh, this is not just for the business, but I've talked to a lot of young women, and 30s and 40s women into 50s. We talk about how walking around with what can be identified as failure on our outside, we walk around looking like a failure, quote unquote, on the outside. And we talk about how sometimes we secretly wish maybe we were allergic to something instead. Maybe we were missing an appendix. Like, maybe we have a scar on our back, versus we're bigger, because it would be more hidden, right? We wished for some other thing besides looking the way we look. And when I was able to be real with these women, you know, including exploring these feelings myself and changing the lens through which I looked at how I'm made, and you know, what I work on, what I struggle with, what I see, I realized that's absolutely not just a show business thing. You know, women have been taught to judge themselves harshly. And, you know, it's arguable that men have been taught to expect a certain form of woman. For many generations. And as you know, being a teacher and a historian, the shape of women and what's popular has changed through the centuries, you know.
Multiple times.
And so I think that's really important, to plant those seeds opposite of what was planted within me, of you are on purpose the way you're made. And there's a message and a mission in how you're formed to get through this world and to reach the people you need to reach. I do have a story about that, but one more thing. Before that, I had planted within me this untruth of that I wasn't good enough if I didn't look a certain way. However, The difference that I want to make in these next generations is I want someone to be there to say, hey, that's not true. You don't have to keep that inside. You don't have to let that stay. I didn't know that I could like reject that. And it grew kind of all on its own, like just unwatched, unmonitored, all through my developmental years, all through college, into adulthood. And it has been so hard to rip out that plant after all this time. The roots are deep, right? What if I can be that person to say, yeah, they can say that. They can ask of you to look a certain way. It's a business of show. They can tell you that for their business, this is what they need. That doesn't mean you have to be that. You know, you have a choice. So that's kind of the difference. I can't change what the business asks of people, but I can change how we react to it and how we grow as young people into adulthood and see ourselves even when we're not at work, right? And if that's the case in show business, imagine what any young girl can do, any young guy can do, if they understand that they don't have to accept something that some adult or business says about them to be actually true. It's an opinion, right? That can change lives. And so I get really excited about that. So here's my anecdote. What brought it all around for me, knowing that for many years I punished myself for how I looked or how I couldn't measure up to a certain idea of what was needed from me in the business. I used to get fan letters when I was like sixth season, somewhere when I was like 15, 16. I became the most written female on the show. And I was like, really? Like, I could never believe that I was, popular. And one young girl wrote me and said, I'm so glad you're on this show because you're an average size and you help me know that I'm okay too. Because you're not super skinny. I feel good that I'm okay too. I was horrified at the time that I was found out that I wasn't, teeny tiny like everybody else. I was so deflated. But all these years later, now I go to 90s Con and the same kind of thing happens. Women come up to me and say, you showed me that how I looked was okay, that I don't have to be itty bitty to be useful and valuable and beautiful and do stuff. You were on the Mickey Mouse Club. You were killing it, and you were like a real girl. And now I say, I understand that God made me this way on purpose. And God also made me for you. God made me this way to help you. Right. And this way that I'm made is not something bad, but for so long, that was this weird untruth that I was wrestling with. Right. So every person that comes up to me at 90s Con, like we're having like a little church service, like just a little ministry moment. We're all crying and hugging. And I'm like, you're beautiful. You're gorgeous. Like, and it just felt so fantastic. And the whole time, the Holy Spirit's like, you see it? You see it? This is a part of your purpose, And I just got very overwhelmed with gratitude. And there was just there's just so much depth to, what all of that has turned into. And my biggest regret is that I couldn't just love myself the way I was when I was itty bitty.
Well, I'm glad you changed all that.
Thank you.
Jen, before we end the interview, I'm going to tell you stick around a couple of minutes because I got some stuff I want to tell you off the record that's really funny that isn't pertinent to the interview, but I think you'll get a kick out of it. Where can we find you on social media if we want? Well, actually, before we even get to that, the most unusual place you've been recognized. Let's touch on that one. And the worst pickup line you've heard because of your celebrity.
Oh, man.
Let's leave with those two.
Okay. So the easier question is Busch Gardens, or the answer is Busch Gardens frequently. And I was doing a whole other, like a family Christian show. And I was just performing and doing the things. And I was focused on the children. But then one of the moms came up and she was like, thank you so much for all the things. She goes, I know who you are. And I was like, oh, right. Because you're a mom and like, I'm a mom age now. Like, oh, right. Yeah. It just took me completely off guard. Right. gosh, I don't know if I've been recognized anywhere like really random, but Busch Gardens is just funny because it's not a Disney company, I don't think.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Craziest place I was recognized. Okay, this is great. This is an actual story. So I'm in NYU, and this is before cell phones, I think. And some friend asked me, hey, so the Backstreet Boys are going to like Tower Records down in Times Square. Can you please go stand in line and like get an autograph for me? And I'm like, okay, I don't have anything to do today. Sure, I'll go down. So I get to Tower Records or wherever they are, and the line, the line's happening. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then as I approach it, I'm like, this is giving me flashbacks to our MMC concert lines. And then I start going, oh, this is the generation, like they may also be fans of the show. And then heads started turning, and I got really, I froze, and I was like, oh crap. Like, am I really that recognizable? Am I about to get like kind of stampeded here? And then that's where I met a family, a dad and two daughters, who quickly kind of gathered me up, put an extra wristband on my hand, and like brought me into this little VIP section and saved me, kind of, and they're still my friends. Like, they're still fantastic humans. But like they kind of saved me because otherwise I was walking into the lion's den, right? I shouldn't call any fan a lion. I mean, I guess in a bad way, a lion, but I thought maybe I was going to get devoured, right? Because I just had never thought, oh, I'm that recognizable, just,
the story would have been so much funnier if it was NSYNC.
I know, but they weren't around yet, or like they were just starting. I do have a great NSYNC story where I remember, well, because Joey Fatone and I were high school friends, and Chris was a big fan of the Mickey Mouse Club. And then, of course, Justin and JC were all up in it. And I was home from college, and they invited me over to the NSYNC house, as we called it, to watch their rehearsals for the European tour. So America didn't know anything about what was going on. So they like light their tiki torches, and like somewhere beyond wherever the pool was, this was in Orlando, they like rehearsed on this, concrete area, and they're showing me all the dance moves and stuff. And I'm like, that one and that one need to rehearse more. Like that one and that one need to rehearse more. And I was just like, oh, you're doing great. Like, you're doing great, and it was just there, right? Because everyone was still getting everything down, And so, and me being highly critical, just because it's just kind of what happens when you're a coach in this business. I just thought that was so funny that they're just like, yeah, hey, come watch some of our dances, kind of see how, let's see how we're doing. And I'm like, well, it's good. Like, we're not in sync yet, but the beginnings of the jokes. And then what was your other question? Something about
the worst pickup line for being a celebrity. Like, somebody's hitting on you and they give you like the cheesiest, like MMC or CCM. I love that we invert the letters between Mickey Mouse Club and Christian contemporary music.
Right.
Either one for you.
Yeah. You know what? Here's the real deal. I don't think anyone has ever done a celebrity pickup line. I'm sure at some point I've heard something crass, like I've always wanted to be with a Mouseketeer, and the language was probably more crass, but that wasn't necessarily said to me or as a pickup line. The big truth is, I was not groomed to be thought of as an older girl to date on the show. I was never identified as that. And when I was, it was an accidental backhanded compliment where a stagehand said, who knew you would turn out to be this gorgeous? And it was like, thank you. Okay, thanks, I guess, So it was not, I wasn't hired, as a beautiful young girl. I was hired as a young, relatable powerhouse singer who just happened to be funny and happened to grow up, and be pretty and, do the things like, serve the purposes. But yeah, I was never talked about as, oh my gosh, she was so hot. Like, you will never see on a panel of Mouseketeers when they say, who did you guys have a crush on? I will never be brought up. You know, it was never the deal. I wasn't seen like that. And, you know, I had a complex about that for a long time. But what I really appreciate is that all through my young life, there were people who could have taken advantage of me and they never did. And I call that the Jesus bubble. I feel like there was something around me where people were like, yeah, that one, probably shouldn't mess with that. We probably shouldn't put her in this other category. And I longed to be in that category for many years. But again, everything is easier to see 2020, right? Hindsight. And so I'm really grateful that I did not have that kind of energy. But yeah, that wasn't my world, being hit on. That wasn't the deal for me growing up in the business.
Okay. That's unusual, but sure, we'll take that.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the trials and tribulations of a child star. I'm the only one that they didn't take advantage of, I guess.
Well, Jennifer, stick around a couple of minutes after we're done with the interview, but please let us know where we can find you and PCG on social media if we want to connect.
Absolutely. So you can find me at jennifermcgill.com. I have all my social media on there. My favorite social media is Instagram, the Jennifer McGill. And PCGArtistDevelopment.com. You can also find PCG Artist Development clicking on the links in my bio.
Awesome. Thank you so much for today. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much for the interview. I hope I see you in California.
I hope so too. Oh, real quick. If you do come out this way, since I'm only 15 minutes from Disneyland, I'm going to put this challenge to you. Would you be willing to go to Disneyland with me and walk down Main Street, USA, singing the Mickey Mouse Club theme song with me?
I would. I have no idea if I actually have the calendar travel space to do it, but I would.
That would, see, that's a fantasy of walking down Main Street, USA, singing the Mickey Mouse Club theme song with a Mouseketeer.
I can tell you that Anthony Donovan will have to figure out a way to get there too. Like he is going to have to be a part of that.
Whomever you want to bring with you.
Shout out to Anthony for loving Disneyland as much as you do. I love it.